I don't believe in free will. Not necessarily because there's some deity that is guiding my every action, but simply because the universe seems to tick steadily forward at its predetermined cadence. I didn't always used to feel this way about free will. I used to think I was the master of my own destiny, much to the dismay of my mother, who would tell me not to do things like run outside in the middle of a hurricane. Surprisingly, this strategy of mine seemed to work out pretty well, and it brought me to a lot of interesting places and people. It seemed like no matter whether I followed conventional wisdom or not, people were generally kind, and nature was even kinder. So I didn't think twice when I went to go visit the Grand Canyon. And if you haven't been, it's so close. You gotta go. It's awe-inspiring. I remember standing at the edge and holding out my fingers and thinking, this is a plane, and here's a skyscraper, and thinking, we've got nothing on nature. But I didn't want to just stand there and look at it. I wanted to go in the thing. So I found a trail map, and there were easy, medium, and then there was one called the Hermit Trail. And with a name like that, I couldn't resist. So I took the bus. It was the last stop, and I was the only one to get off. And at the top of the trail, there's this billboard of all of these signs. It was like a torrent of my mother telling me all the things I wasn't supposed to do. And I was so confident in myself that I took a picture of the sign, and so that I could go back and tell my friends how cool I was for ignoring all of these things. I had a bottle of water. What else could I need? So I started down the canyon, and it was fantastic. It was about 11 o'clock, and the sun was hitting this one side of the canyon and illuminating all of these different shades of red. It was beautiful. And I timed it so that my water ran out right about the time I got to the fountain that was on the map. But it wasn't a fountain. It was actually a pipe, and it was drip, drip, dripping water into this trough of brown-green sludge. Okay, well, I filled up, and I went on my merry way. And I was feeling pretty badass at this point. I'm drinking nasty water, and I'm keeping a brisk pace because this is a 2-day hike, and I wanted to get down and back in one. And then, all of a sudden, everything changed. Over the edge of the canyon, like a bright, glaring god, the sun came out. And I started pouring sweat, and I was drinking water every few steps. And I started to panic. I was thinking, oh, is it around the next bend? Am I almost there? Which is ridiculous because it's a 2-day hike. And then I eventually ran out of water. And I went around a few more bends just in case before I finally made the realization I had to go back. So I turned around and I started up the trail, and I had this sinking feeling. I suddenly realized there's a reason they call it a canyon. Going up is not the same as going down. Every one of those steps was more difficult than the last, and I was not a hiker, obviously, by my choices. And those steps completely destroyed me. I would take a few steps, pause, breathe, take a step, pause, breathe. My mouth was sandpaper. I kept going for what turned into about an hour, but at some point, my body just gave out on me. I couldn't do it anymore. And I laid down there on the trail, and I just gave up. And in that moment, I knew that I was not in control. Something or someone had to happen to me to get me out of the situation that I was in. And I laid down, and I looked at the sky, and there was this cloud in the distance. And I thought, maybe. And the cloud came, and for the briefest of moments, it covered the sun and protected me from its hellish fury. I got a burst of courage, and I charged up the mountain. And I also remember feeling this sensation in my abdomen. I had to pee. So I looked at my water bottle, and just in case, I told myself. So I made it to the next spot of shade, and I cooled my clothes on some rocks, and I nibbled on bits of mud, and I ate cactuses, which didn't work, and just waited for that next cloud to come by. And I repeated this cycle over a few hours. Make a burst, recycle my water, wait for the next cloud, and proceed. And after a while, I eventually made it back to that beautiful trickle of green-brown sludge. There was nothing I could do but sit down and cry. So I don't believe in free will. I do what I do because of the choices I've made in the past and what things have happened to me up until this point. But I also don't like the idea that there's some deity forcing my hand. But if I had to worship something, I would probably worship the sun. Thank you.